We've made it. We have entered into the final stages of this great Unclean one. I just want to start off by saying I really appreciate all the kind words that you guys have been saying about this. It means a lot to me, and, yeah, thanks. As you may have picked up by now, this isn't really a tutorial series at all. I've said a couple times that I'm no expert, but really that's just a cover. I don't really want to make tutorials at the moment, at least in this format. That could change overnight, but for now, you just get to watch me sit and paint, and I guess do some other things as well. But let's talk about the process a little bit, and as per usual, I'm going to pepper in some nice things here and there to keep the morale high because, well, I like you, and I want you to feel appreciated and welcome. Since this is a part of my first real army in the grim darkness of the far future, I wanted to draw a lot of inspiration from the classic looks of the models for the ones that I am painting. This means that I started with plague bear flesh to cover up most of this sculpted model. This was just the foundation I wanted and needed to give it that sort of instant classic Unclean one vibe. Beyond that, as you can see, I used a myriad of colors and varieties of paints, different types of paints and whatnot, and when I sculpted this, I didn't have an idea about painting it. I drew inspiration from other places as well. Many really great hobbyists on Instagram, as well as some material from 28 Mag and other niche resources. But there were moments I had to stop and just think about the next step. Take a small break. I've got to say, for as much as I was nervous about this painting process, I was equally excited to actually be doing it. I wanted this to look gross and feel gross. How can it be a great Unclean one if it looks neat and tidy? I have a tendency to overdo things or to keep slapping paint on when I should stop, but laying out all of my paints ahead of time really helped me mitigate that issue that I suffer from. I knew that eventually someone would see this model and make some sort of comment. While I didn't expect them to be bad, I am trying this new thing where I tell myself that I love every single thing that I make, no matter what. Luckily, everyone has been really nice to me and supportive, but what's really cool about that, aside from tricking myself into liking everything that I make, is that through that process, I end up liking the little flaws and hiccups that tend to happen while I'm painting. I've started to realize that these aren't really flaws at all. They're a part of my struggle, but they are also a part of my style and my signature. Those little brushstrokes and smudges and lines are all my work. They are part of my unique style. For the most part, reframing my expectations and embracing my quirks has afforded me some of my best hobby moments to date. I want to be clear though, I said reframing and not lowering my expectations, and I think that distinction is important. Unless you're painting for a competition or a client, there is no one else in the entire universe who has say in what you do or how you do it. Embrace that. Use your favorite colors, even if they don't exactly make sense. Buy whatever models you think look the coolest. Don't listen to the vocal minority who always seem to have all the complaining to do and not much to show. We don't need them as rule makers in our hobby. Anyways. I really focused on using thinner paints and weathering techniques to begin to unify the model. It was important to me that it fits within the other models that I've been painting on my own time. The Plague Bear Flesh was really an easy cheat to make that happen, and I personally love the yellowish green results and the weird tones of the skin that I was also able to achieve. I would say that I have painted some really nice models and minis in my time, but I was going for less precision here and more of a vibe. If you follow me on Instagram, you may have seen my Death Guard models that I've been working on, and I couldn't be happier with their progress so far. They're kind of sloppily painted though, but in a good way. The paint is where I intended it to be on each model, but I also intended it to look dirty and menacing. Not like the clean dirty that is kind of popular with a nice, gentle paint chipping and whatnot, but actually dirty looking. grim dark, maybe? Can you self-proclaim that? I don't know. I guess it doesn't really matter, and I digress. By the way, the base that this thing is sitting on is a plastic doorknob stopper. It's meant to protect the wall from an opening door. It was cheap and the perfect size for what I needed. I used a couple of technical paints for the ground cover, and at one point I even dug through my bits box to try and find some ground cover, but I didn't end up using anything from there. Just some static grass tufts instead. Also, another random note, beware when using a heat gun on your models. Better yet, don't use one. They get really hot and it'll just melt your plastic or ruin your paint. But I am lazy and careful most of the time, although I do have a couple of burn scars on my arms. My biggest takeaway from this whole process of planning, sculpting, and finally painting this model wasn't clear to me at first. It's taken some time to get to this point, and I'm really pleased with it. I almost left it at that. There's nothing wrong with that, but while during this process, I have been processing some personal emotions. I also know that I use this hobby as a way to relieve stress and sometimes escape from real-world problems. I work through a lot of stuff with this piece, and I think my biggest takeaway, on top of what I said earlier, is that it's okay to make mistakes or feel like you have, but just remember, whose standard are you trying to live up to? If it's anyone besides your own realistic one, that is, then maybe it's time to pivot or reframe. It's never too late to reframe. Aside from all of that, I'm genuinely curious to hear about the things that you folks are working on. I would love it if you told me about your projects or builds or games or whatever down in the comments. I love reading them and starting these great dialogues down there. I've read some really great stuff in regards to people's D&D campaigns, as well as their excitement to start drawing or crafting, and it really makes me happy. So keep those coming, please. I really, really appreciate them. Also, I see all you folks who stop by every video, and that is much appreciated. I see all those comments every single time, and it really, again, makes me very happy. Speaking of appreciation, I want to say thank you to everyone over on my Patreon. It's pretty surreal for me to be able to have that platform and have a support system like that. So yeah, that really means a lot as well. And big shout out to my latest patron, Sculpt. If you're still here, thank you. I've got to imagine you would give this a like if you've made it this far. Maybe even share it with a friend. I've got links below where you can support me in other various ways as well. The most important thing, though, is that you have a good day. Peace out.